After 6 hours passed, Delphina Nigi was allowed to spend the night in the lobby. After 6 hours passed, Delphina Nigi was allowed to spend the night in the lobby. A Kenyan woman arrived at this shelter in Mississauga, Ontario. She was told there was no room left. After 6 hours passed, Delphina Nigi was allowed to spend the night in the lobby. Then on Sunday, 3 days after coming to Canada to claim asylum, she collapsed. Her cause of death unexplained.
She had to wait outside for a long time in the cold. And eventually, she died. That we know.
Welcome back to Heal Your Energy. My name is Kanini. So this morning I woke up to the news from the Kikuyu diaspora media about the Kenyan lady who died in Toronto. She had just arrived in Canada. It was her first time to ever even get on a plane to go somewhere far from home. And she ended up in Canada in the middle of the winter. And she was seeking shelter at a shelter place, and they did not offer her a place. They said that they were full, and she ended up dying, most likely due to hypothermia that led her heart to fail. And it was a grueling 6 hours after she had come. You can imagine the plight of this woman. She had been traveling, and then she comes to Canada. And in 3 days she's dead. She doesn't know a lot of people in Canada. She's new, so she goes to a shelter and they didn't help her, so she ended up dying.
That we know.
Outside that shelter, community advocates held a moment of silence, saying Ngigi's death highlights urgent needs that Ottawa must address.
People don't leave their homes and come here to die. They come for some better life.
Last November, another asylum seeker died in the tent encampment outside that same shelter, leading some here to blame the Prime Minister for opening the door to more newcomers without proper resources.
It's like, welcome to Canada, our beautiful country, but you're going to be homeless. Like, seriously?
The Greater Toronto Area has seen a surge in asylum seekers forced to sleep rough, with nearby Mississauga's shelters operating at 400% capacity. The city is home to Pearson International Airport, Canada's largest, and wants Ottawa to pay accordingly.
For crying out loud, the airport's in our backyard. We get among the highest number of asylum seekers.
The federal government has pledged to help fund a new welcome center near Pearson, but it's not open yet.
What we need to do is get the feds to step up with the asylum seekers.
After 6 hours passed, Delphina Nigi was allowed to spend the night in the lobby.
And when you see such a thing happening in society today, and this is why I created my channel, Heal Your Energy, this is something that can disturb your energy, because you wonder how on earth can somebody allow someone else to freeze to death and die. And then you think about this not being the first person to actually die under this shelter. Somebody froze to death, died 3 months earlier, somebody else had died. And, sometimes things like this happen and nobody's talking about now. I think because she's Kenyan, it finally hits home for some of us, but I know there was also another Indian family that died, father, mother, and children. They were freezing from the Canadian border. They were trying to get into the US. And so many things could have happened for them to get help, for the right people to help them. But all this doesn't happen. For me here at Heal Your Energy, it's more so that you take personal responsibility, the way you treat other human beings, the way you treat other living human beings. A lot of people, we tend to think that life is just here on earth. Your soul progresses after you're dead. So life doesn't end here. Life actually starts when you die. And when you think about that, you have to really think about the kind of person you want to live in this spiritual universe, because in this life, your life is spiritual. even after your life is spiritual. So you have to think about, how do you treat strangers? How do you treat a homeless woman from another country who's landed in your city? Are you going to let them freeze to death before you find help? Before you engage other people to come and help? All these things, you will have to sit with your own conscience and go to sleep at night, knowing that this is how you treated somebody, that this is how you treated a widow because she was a widow. And we know that in the Bible, the way Jesus has a heart for the widow and the orphans, you will have to go at night and sleep knowing that this is how you treated a widow, somebody completely helpless and new in your town, and this is the kind of treatment that you treated them. You let them freeze to death. That will weigh on your conscience. That will weigh on your conscience. And if you can do that and sleep at night, that tells you that you already hit a spiritual death. You're dead inside. There is no, you need a revival of conscience. And it's good when people, like when you're moving to the Western countries, just know that some people don't have a conscience. There are people who are dead inside. There is no moral ecology in them. There is no character in them. They are there, but they don't know what they're doing with their life. They haven't woken up to the reality, of the spiritual universe that we live in. So, again, this is spiritual fitness, and this is healing your energy. Do not let yourself to degrade to that level where you absolutely don't care for another human being, because once you get to that point, you've lost everything. You might have your house, you might have your job, you might have your family, but once you hit the point where you don't actually care, somebody can die and you don't care, something is already dead so deep within you, you really need to go repent, and you need redemption, because at the very core of you, you're dead. It's, and it's sad. And again, this is the point where you don't want to reach that point, that you can watch somebody freeze to death and not care for hours, for 8 hours, and not do anything, not offer them a blanket, a jacket, some hot water. It's actually very sad, but when you're moving into Western countries, you need to know that there are people who have reached that point in their soul. They just, inside of them, there is no soul. There is nobody there. They're just a vehicle that's just pumping blood and oxygen, that is just pumping oxygen. There is literally nothing there. And that's the sad reality of the world we live in. Some people are not human. The soul left the body a long time ago. That's the point, that you don't want to reach there. You don't want to do so many bad things. You don't want to start not caring for people, that you get to that point that you're literally dead on the inside. You're just like a zombie walking in life. There is nothing that can faze you. Somebody can die, freeze to death, like you don't care. That's the point that, a lot of people are getting into, where you stop caring. You're numb on the inside. There is no human being there. There is no breathing, or there's no beating heart. You're just a shell, literally a shell of a human. There is nothing there. And a lot of things that you think, this is when the Bible says that you don't start there. You don't just become numb inside. It's something you do over time. Slowly and slowly and slowly, you start to stray away. You know, you stray bit by bit, bit by bit, bit by bit, you know, but at the end of it, you really don't care. It's like somebody like Bernie Madoff, right? He's probably started stealing small things here and there, until he could steal like a whole person's retirement fund and not care. not care. You start dying inside bit by bit, bit by bit, bit by bit. And this is why we come to like the healing of your energy, the spiritual fitness, the healing your inner being. You don't want to be numb. You don't want the world to numb you until you forget to be a human being, because once you have no gentleness in you, once you have no generosity in you, you know, once you don't have any selflessness that you can spare some hot water and give a person who just been traveling for 3 days, you know, once you hit that point, you've reached the rock bottom of your soul. And if you're moving into these countries, you need to know that not everybody has a soul. You need to find out people who actually have a soul. Not everybody has a soul. So let me play a little bit of this video.
He was told there was no room left. After 6 hours passed, Delphina Nigi was allowed to spend the night in the lobby. After 6 hours passed, Delphina Nigi was allowed to spend the night in the lobby. Then on Sunday, 3 days after coming to Canada to claim asylum, she collapsed. Her cause of death, unexplained. Unexplained.
She had to wait outside for a long time.
She stayed outside for... They're saying she was in the lobby. Somebody said she was actually outside getting hit by the cold weather. And she stayed there for 6-7 hours, outside, 6 or 7 hours. This woman, she had been traveling for like, she left Kenya on Valentine's Day. And she died on Saturday. So you can imagine she's been traveling most of that time. She's tired, she's probably hungry, and she doesn't have a bed or a place to stay. You can imagine how you are when you travel. And you know, to get to a place where that you think you'll get a shelter, but they don't talk to you, they probably don't listen, or you know, they're not caring. They don't even ask her questions. She's new to the country. They could help her, maybe call somebody or get a hold of a Kenyan or call the police, somebody else to help her, like, hey, there's this stranded woman. You know, 7 hours, just we have reached that point where we actually don't care a lot about people or ask questions. That is very sad. A lot of people are depressed because of this numbness in our society. There is like this numbness, the lack of caring for your brother or your sister. And I think that's, you know, that's the price, that the curse of depression on this, in America and in most Western countries, depression rates are overwhelmingly high, but that's the curse of being so individualistic, so selfish, so self-centered, not thinking about other people. God always balances these things out, you know. So I just hope, like, for you, you take responsibility for your own internal state, the way you treat other people, the way you are with, you know, with strangers. If you can watch somebody die, that's going to haunt you for the rest of your life, because you actually did not do anything. And that goes into your conscience, into your into your subconscious. And if you let your moral ecology be corrupted, over time, you will not recognize the person you are. You won't know yourself. You will lose sight of who you are. And that is what, you know, that is what we say in spiritual fitness, that you have to care about the person you become.
In the cold. And eventually, She died. That we know.
Outside that shelter, community advocates held a moment of silence, saying Ngigi's death highlights urgent needs that Ottawa must address.
People don't leave their homes and come here to die. They come for some better life.
Last November, another asylum seeker died in the tent encampment outside that same shelter, leading some here to blame the Prime Minister for opening the door to more newcomers without proper resources.
It's like, welcome to Canada, our beautiful country, but you're going to be homeless. Like, seriously?
The Greater Toronto Area has seen...
I don't just blame the Canadian government, I also blame the Kenyan government. When people are going to Canada or the US in the months of the winter, there is no information in Kenya from the Kenyan government advising Kenyans on the kind of country that they are going into. This woman probably was not dressed up for the weather because she lives in the equator. She doesn't know. There is no possible way that she knows that it's going to be, minus probably 35 degrees. She doesn't know because she has no clue about that kind of weather. She has never experienced it in her life ever. But in Kenya, oftentimes when you're moving from Kenya to the Western world, you probably have zero information because you don't even know what to expect. She was probably not dressed for the weather. She did not have the right boots, the right clothing, everything. And this is the point where you as a stranger, you see somebody not dressed even for the weather, something should kick in you like, oh, it's cold outside. Oh, they might need a blanket or a jacket or maybe some hot water. Something. Out of the kindness of your heart, out of the generosity of your heart, out of how big you are on the inside, life will test your generosity and your kindness and your openness to receive strangers. It will test the quality of your character. Your character is going to be tested by life. Life will test the quality of your character. So you can say that, hey, I wasn't kind to her because of anything. God doesn't work like that. God doesn't take those kinds of excuses that you're morally corrupt. That's why you couldn't have any generosity in your heart to help somebody. Life doesn't work like that. And I'm not blaming anybody or anything in this situation. I'm just saying, when it comes to spiritual matters, you have a responsibility to guard your heart. You have a responsibility to guard your heart from becoming a weak person who doesn't take action when they are needed to, a weak person who doesn't speak up when they are needed to. You have to guard your heart from being wicked, from not doing the right actions, from not helping others. You have a responsibility to guard your heart. And when you see people, I saw somebody who was actually texting when they saw this whole thing. They're like, why do they come here and start complaining? It's in my right to call out something that is unjust and unfair as a Christian, by my faith, as a human being. And just because I'm not a Canadian citizen, that doesn't mean that I can speak up. Just because I'm not a Canadian citizen doesn't mean I don't have moral ecology to see something wrong and not call it out. Did they do? Because if somebody came to Kenya, because I'm from Kenya, and they died there, they have a right to ask, how did they die? How did my family member die? So nobody can come here and start saying, you can't shut my mouth just because you're a Canadian citizen. That doesn't give you any right to shut my mouth from talking and advocating for somebody else's life, or not call out like human rights abuse in your country. You're not above that. You're not above that. So even immigrants in your country have a right to question you about your moral conduct, and the moral ecology of your culture. We have to. And yeah, I don't know why, like, you think like you're above here, superior to other people, that they should not even ask ask you, you know. But again, you know, these are people who actually don't have the ability to ask themselves, oh, I'm actually not a native of Canada too. You know, the people actually asking that, they're not natives of that land. They come from a line of immigrants. And if somebody died, their family member died from another country, you know, hell would break loose. But the hypocrisy in them saying that immigrants should not even be talking about this issue, I find it very confronting, the level of hypocrisy. Yeah, but anyway, it is what it is. Like, I'm not going to, it's not just, you know, but however you treat people on this planet, on earth, you're going to be treated, you know, you had best pray that God does not give you the same treatment. You had better understand the justice that comes from God. You are not above it. You are not above it. So you have to be very, very careful in life how you treat other people. It comes back around. It's the justice of the universe. It always comes back around. So even if you stopped caring, if you stopped caring for somebody because they're from a different country, sooner or later you'll stop caring about yourself and other people, and you're going to hate yourself. You're going to start hating yourself because, you know, deep down you have a little bit of no respect for yourself. So these are things that you have to know. There is always justice in the universe, in the spiritual world, whether you like it or not. Whether you like it or not. And you will see the cumulative effect. You know, it starts slowly, but then by the time you're like 10 years down the line, you look at yourself, you look at where you wanted to be, the kind of person that you wanted to become, and then you realize instead of becoming a kind person, you ended up being a villain. You know, a disgrace to humanity, to yourself, to your society. All that comes. All that will come. So you have to really think about the way you are. Are you selfish? Are you self-centered? Are you the kind of person who can't help a stranger? All these things. We live in a society where these days nobody is insisting on your character, on the kind of person that you're going to become, that you have to worry for yourself, for your soul.
Surge in asylum seekers forced to sleep rough, with nearby Mississauga's shelters operating at 400% capacity. The city is home to Pearson International Airport, Canada's largest, and wants Ottawa to pay accordingly.
For crying out loud, the airport's in our backyard. We get among the highest number of asylum seekers.
The federal government has pledged to help fund a new welcome
because of immigrants. And other countries, they should know this, that if you welcome more immigrants in your country, your economy is likely to grow. But what I find very, very confronting is the treatment of immigrants, you know, in the US. It's a form of slavery. It's a form of modern day slavery, where you want people to come in, not give them documentation so that they can do all the poor jobs and you can pay them less. And then the same people who are doing this, they will go to their coffee shops and start talking so badly about immigrants. It's so disgusting, actually, when you listen to it, and you're like, the audacity. Like, some people are not even, they don't feel sick to the stomach about the things that just they allow themselves to become over time. You know, this arrogant, ignorant, just because you have more money, just because you're a citizen of a developed country, you know, you forget that at the core, you're just a mere human being, you know, and when you die, you'll turn to dust just like everybody else, and your soul will go to judgment before God, and you either go to hell, you know, they will weigh you you will be weighed. The Bible is clear that there is a scale and you will be weighed on it. So just think about how you treat people just because you have money, just because you, especially when you know that you didn't even start there. You know, all of a sudden you lacked humility. Now you think that you grow horns, you become like the devil, and you start treating people poorly, talking about how they are poor, how they are like this and like that. I sometimes, this is the side of human character that I see that even God hates. You know, God must be pretty much be disgusted by it. You know, as much as I love that, you know, I come from humble beginnings. I'm trying my best in a new country, you know, to be confronted by people who are very, very mean spirited towards immigrants. It just, you can feel it. It's a sickening thing. For me, it makes me sick. Sometimes you're left without words, like you're left speechless. And these are the things that, you know, they're very confronting. They're very, very confronting and even corrosive to the human soul. So yeah, you think about it and you're like, it's astonishing. There is no amount of education that can teach you how to be generous and self-centered on the inside. These are spiritual things. You either get them or you don't. You know, but we all know the wages of sin is surely death, because if God says it, it is. So the amount of hatred that you have for other people, imagine it's producing chemicals in your body that are going to kill you and produce disease in your body. People wonder, oh, why did that person who was rich, why did they get prostate cancer? Or why did they get this type of disease? Why, you know, because those chemicals of when you hate other people, you actually produce stress chemicals like cortisol, and they are harmful to your body. Whether you like it or not, these chemicals are designed to kill you. So your negative mind is designed to kill you. You know, if you wonder, oh, why is my marriage breaking up? It's that hatred that you have towards other people that makes you a hateful person that's poisoning your marriage and your business and things like that. You know, God is always just. God is always just. So you have to think about what these kinds of things are going to do into your life. And I'm telling you this because this is heal your energy. You either heal or you will die. You will die a physical death first before you die a spiritual death. People don't believe the Bible when the Bible tells you that the wages of sin is death. We are meaning a spiritual kind of death. The way you feel numb inside, like you've lost your human connection with yourself. You know, some people are numb inside. That's telling you that your spirit is withering and dying. And actually, when you die, that could mean that you're cut off completely from life, the life-giving source of goodness. Because if you choose to hate, you choose to cut yourself from the goodness of God, and then you're cut off completely. You can go to hell. You can go to hell for your sins. So what I'm trying to say is, you think about the state of your heart, because it's going to kill something in your life. Even if you hate strangers and you think, oh, they're from a different race, it doesn't matter. It matters because it will affect you in a neurochemical level. It will affect you in a thought level. It's going to poison things, whether it's your career, it's your marriage. It's going to poison something, your happiness, your joyfulness. It's going to affect you somehow. So you have to be very, very careful. You really must be very careful. Again, this is heal your energy, and I hope that you find this message very, very helpful, and you understand the wisdom that comes from God. Again, my name is Kanini, and this is Heal Your Energy, and may God bless you.